So, welcome everybody to our Taking Back the Room, leading from a regulated state. It's lovely to have you here. And yeah, it's a busy time. So, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy morning to jump online with me. Um, my name's Sarah Moore. I'm the Director at Early Educational Leadership, and we've been running these free webinars for probably about nearly a year now. And yeah, it's really interesting to see when I put the topics up, which are the ones that people are most interested in. And as I said, this one seems to have landed, I think, for good reason with the world that we're living in at the moment. So let's get the content underway. Um, One of the things that I really want to just acknowledge is that you are taking time out this morning to focus on this particular topic, which is very, very dear to my heart. I've been doing this work in the self-regulation space for nearly, I think, around 10 years. Angie, who's in the room with us, has been traveling with me for probably as long as that, if not a little bit longer as a participant. And I've done training in her service in Young. Um, and in the early days, self-regulation has always been a topic very much that has gone through the lens of children, ensuring children are regulated, of which obviously I wholeheartedly, agree with. But in the early days, very little was actually talked about the importance of educators and leaders being self-regulated and their awareness around self-regulation, which I think is fascinating because as the researchers supports that, if we as leaders and educators aren't regulated, it doesn't matter what training you do with children, that your children are not going to be regulated. So this is a really, really important topic in relation to the work you do. It's also a really important topic for you in regards to your own health and well-being. Because there's again a lot of research that supports when you're operating from a self-regulated space, you're less stressed. And overall, it's better for your health, it's better for your breathing. And the bit that I come into with this that I'm very passionate around is the neuroscience part, which is the way our brains work when we're dysregulated versus regulated is very, very different. And we know that, you know, you as educators and leaders, and I think all of you are leaders, whether you hold the title leader or not, but all of your roles have a leadership focus, which means you're setting the energy in the room or in conversations with other people. And so your ability to self-regulate directly corresponds on how you function as a leader, how you're able to find the words that you need to, how you're able to understand things from different perspectives, how flexible you are in your thinking, etc. And I'm going to talk more about that this morning as we move on. But the irony with this topic is that it's actually not that difficult. And what I'm sharing with you today, a lot of it you already know intrinsically within your own bodies. You don't, if I say slow down and take some deep breaths, you feel that that is good for you. It intrinsically feels good for you. But the tricky thing that we're dealing with in the world at the moment is that we're in, and particularly the environments you're working in, is you're in such fast-paced environments. It's very, very easy for us to forget the level of importance this plays. So this morning, really, my job is to impart those reminders to you and hopefully fill in some gaps as to why this is so important and leave you with a sense of, this is something that I need to focus on more for myself and for those around me. So the way we're going to roll out the next hour is this is very informal. We've got a small group. I'm presuming we're going to have a larger group of people who are going to be accessing the recording. So please feel free to pop your hand up if you've got a question as we move through. I really encourage you to use the chat box as much as you can, because if there's something that lands for you and you love the sound of it, pop it in the chat box because somebody else might have dropped out in those few seconds and not heard it. And then that validates their thinking, oh, that is a really good point. And it's really helpful when we write down the things that land for us. That also means we're locking them into our brains a little bit deeper than we would when we're just listening. So I also encourage you to take notes as we move through. So let us begin by me starting off by doing our Aboriginal acknowledgement. Today I come to you from Engadine, which is in the Sutherland Shire, which is in Darawal country, and therefore I want to honour the Darawal people as the traditional custodians of the land. I pay my deep respect to their elders past and present and to the stories, wisdom and connections that continue to live through this country. We are gathering today from many places across Australia, different countries, different skies, each of us carrying the thread of where we come from. As we meet, may we listen with our whole being, and may we hold space for more than one way of knowing, and may we remember that learning is not just about content, it's about connection. Can we travel through the time and space we have together today with respect, curiosity, and a willingness to grow, knowing that in every conversation a story unfolds, and that within this shared space our thoughts, experiences, and ideas have the potential to weave together, forming something new and something none of us could shape alone. And before I sort of move on from that slide, I really want to acknowledge that the topic we're talking about isn't new. Like self-regulation and the nervous system have become buzzwords, and there's something that, you know, have infiltrated our culture over the last couple of years. However, if you look at Aboriginal culture and multicultural influences, some of what we're talking about has been around for a very, very long time. And we've lost connection with some of these practices. And, you know, I was working with an Aboriginal leader some time ago. This is some time ago, it probably would be about 6 years ago. And I was talking to her about self-regulation. And I was coaching her at the time, and she said, Sarah, we don't even use that word those words self-regulation. We don't use them. That, you know, like they're part of our culture. And I really want to acknowledge that. And it's same with Asian cultures. You know, we're tapping now into often things that have been forgotten in our culture at a time where we need them most. And you know, I really just want to honor that. And if anyone's in the room that comes from a background of culture in that way, you know, please correct me, pick me up if I'm saying anything that is not in alignment with what needs to be, and share your wisdom and knowledge, because we need this at this time of our lives. Like the world at the moment is moving at such a rapid pace. And what I just want to say before I move on to the next slide is this is not an early childhood sector issue. This is a worldwide issue. You know, we are operating in a world that is getting faster and faster all of the time. And these skills that we're talking about today are the very skills that move us from being reactive to responsive. And we all know what that feels like. We know that reactivity is not necessarily a good place to operate from, and we don't necessarily show up as our best selves when we're operating from that place. So the more we're thinking about how we can respond more than react, the more empowering that is. So just there's hi Melanie, I just want to acknowledge Amanda Holt and the team are in. It's lovely to see you. I'm coming to see you in a few weeks' time, and I'm very much looking forward to it. So let's ground this in your own experiences, because this is what this is about today. I want you to think about a time when you walked in to work already running on empty. And I think you'll all know what this means. Like you've either had a poor night's sleep, or if you're like me, you've had many nights sleep, consecutive nights sleep. you're just literally coming into work and everything's just hitting you at high speed. And that by the time you've arrived to work, before you've even done anything, your nervous system's already feeling on edge. And you might be somebody who drinks coffee as a way of waking you up. And so you're even more on edge because your nervous system's like really getting revved up for the beginning of the day. Um, and this all happens even before you start. So I just want you to just, if you're not already there, and I hope you're not, but if you're not already there, I just want you to just tap into your bodies and connect with that feeling. And pop in the chat box what that feels like for you. You're going to say something, Amanda. We can't hear you. We can't hear you, lovely. Could be one of those mornings for you too. Flustered.
Uh,
Unfortunately, this is me at the moment, and it's very overwhelming.
Hello,
Bless you.
Sarah. Can you hear us?
Yes, we
Oh,
can,
oh,
Melanie.
sorry. Sorry, everyone. I just saw us on TV, and my colleagues are losing the plot.
We're struggling to hear you, Melanie. You're quite, your audio's not great.
We'll get it done.
Okay. Awesome. You're onto it. Um, Nisa, am I pronouncing your name correctly?
It's Nisa.
Nisa,
Yep.
sorry, Nisa.
That's okay.
Um, I just want to acknowledge, I'm sorry you're feeling like that. And I just want to highlight something because you've just beautifully demonstrated. I'm not wanting to put you on the spot, but you've joined the session with a beautiful, calm face and smiling. You've got such a beautiful smile. And it just highlights for me that often what we're seeing in people isn't necessarily what people are feeling. So I'm not wanting to make you feel uncomfortable, but if I was asked how you were feeling this morning, that is not what I would have described. So this shows you how good we all are, and I am included in that, at actually portraying one thing. We're like the duck underneath the water, where we're gliding along on the surface, but underneath we're like paddling fast and faster and faster. So I encourage you, if you're feeling like that, to just, or everyone just take some beautiful deep breaths, and thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate it. Um, so we've got buzzing. Oh, that's an interesting word, Belinda. What does buzzing mean for you?
It's just like the energy build up. So when you're talking about the coffee and the energy of things maybe not going as planned straight up, the combination of the two of those things, it's just that, yeah, just not quite sure where to start.
Yeah.
Um, and just trying to then the next step is kind of that prioritizing. Now I'm here, I might be dysregulated, but prioritizing what has to get done
Well
once you're
done.
sitting in the seat.
Well done. And I want to share something that Belinda said. That's a great word, buzzing, and she's used the word energy. And we often don't think of, our bodies actually, we have energy in us all of the time. So that's a lovely word to actually use. And it's creating like a fizzy thing in my head, Belinda, in terms of, do you know what I mean? Like a sparkling water drink where there's lots of activity, not necessarily bad, but there's lots of activity going on, which is very interesting. Great word. Um, and oh, bless. Rush, everything goes wrong, messy head, flustered. Yeah. Overwhelmed, just needing to put my bag down. Oh, bless you. um, Out of the energy. Interesting. So that sounds like you might be out of sync there. Then crying mess. Oh, Melanie. Melanie and Emma, that sounds a lot. Um, or you might be laughing, I'm not sure. Grounded. Well done, Angie. and breathless and anxious. Okay, so I just really want to acknowledge where everybody's at. I want to thank you for being so open and transparent with how you're showing up. I think it's a real indicator of where everybody's at the moment in the sector. A lot of people are feeling the things that you're feeling. So let's just quickly have a look at what we're going to get out of today's session. So my aim for today is that you'll first have an understanding of what's happening in your brain and body when stress takes over. I should say I'm reminding you of that. Okay, some of you may already know it, some of you may know bits of it, and some of you may not consciously know it, but you absolutely know it in your body. So it's not in a way that makes you feel like there's anything wrong with you. We're all human, and I approach this topic from there's reasons why we feel and we react in the ways that we do. Second, you're going to experience a regulation, not just theory. We're going to pause a part way through and actually do a self-regulation practice, because I can talk about self-regulation all day, but until you feel it in your body, which you do know, but we need to constantly remind ourselves, it's just information. And I want to add something in there for anybody that feels that they are fairly high stressed, and to be relaxed is something they have to work quite hard at doing. I want to just add the content we're sharing today meets you wherever you're at, okay? And I often describe when we're talking about self-regulation, it's like we're putting our foot on the brake and the accelerator at the same time. So if you're highly stressed, it can actually feel quite uncomfortable initially, and it's because your body's not used to going into that pattern. So, meet yourself wherever you're at and make sure that you don't, if you can, try not to move into judgment. I'm doing this wrong. I can't do it. This isn't for me, etc. Whatever the story is, just meet yourself wherever you're at. The science backs up what we're talking about here. And I just invite you to trust yourself and trust your body will take you where the level that you need to go that's safe. And the other thing, you're at work. So to really do this extensively well, I would suggest you try practicing at home first, because you're trying to do it in less of a busy environment. Okay. So the third is we're going to practice a model called STOP that you can start using today in your next staff meeting, in your next conversation with a parent, or just in a car before you walk into work. And as you know, this is a live stream session. So as I've said already, please feel free to bring your questions, put them in the chat box. My screen's on my left side. So if you see me doing that, I've got all my chat and my slides on this left side. So I'm not disengaged with you. I'm just checking as to where we're up to, and I've got my notes in front of me. So just so you know where my head's going and what I'm doing. Welcome, Jackie. So it's lovely to see a few faces, known faces with us today. We've got a few people who are part of our Conscious Leaders Mastermind program. So it's lovely to see those faces, and it's lovely to see some new faces. So welcome. Okay, so we're going to shift now, and we're going to start moving from our sort of welcome section of today into some content. So let me start off with some brain science, because I think when you understand what's happening inside you and others, I have to say, we stop being so hard on ourselves for the way we're reacting and the way that we're showing up. And we can start to see that we have real options in front of us. And the hardest part of what I'm sharing today, I think, is our awareness. It's actually slowing down to bring self-awareness to ourselves and then others. And, that can be challenging in a busy environment, but it's where the work, I think, really, really takes a meaningful turn when we actually can do that. And we've got some people in the room that have done work with me for quite a long time who can validate that when you actually start doing this, it changes the way you lead, absolutely changes the way you lead and the way you show up. And then the flow on from that is the world around you changes because you're changing. So if you show up in a different state, people respond to you in a different way. And the more stressed and anxious and overwhelmed you are, and you all know this, it's like when you're having your world's worst day, that's the day when everything goes wrong. That's the day when the car doesn't start. It's the day you burn yourself in the kitchen. It's the day you trip over, something. It's the day you hear bad news. It's like the universe is against you. Whereas when you can actually slow down and you're really connecting with your world and yourself, things start to shift and change. So this is very much around relational leadership, which we start with. Relational leadership has to start with you first. A lot of people talk to me, well, what can I do with this person, or how can I manage this issue? And I say everything starts with you first, and then it goes out beyond you. So we run a program which I'm going to talk about later on, which is called the Dandelion Project. And we spend literally a quarter of the program actually doing activities where you're focusing on yourself to get yourself in the most grounded, practiced way around this. And when you're not, which inevitably we are, and then we're not throughout any given day, we're regulated, dysregulated, it's not like an arrival point. We actually have the tools to reset ourselves and get ourselves back on track really fast. So let's have a quick look at some of the brain science. So first of all, I want to quickly touch on self-regulation. Because there's, I think, a few myths around self-regulation, and it's not a personality trait. It's something that you develop as a skill. And all of you have that skill, but it's like a muscle. It's like me saying, all of you have a bicep. You all have a bicep, I think. Most of you do anyway. And the more you use it, the stronger it becomes. That's what self-regulation is. You all know how to self-regulate. If I was to put you on a beach in the Bahamas, lying down by the ocean with nothing going on, I can pretty much guarantee you would become in a self-regulated state very quickly. But the skill with it is how we use it and how we can actually maximize it for ourselves. So what is it? It's our ability to notice our nervous system, what's actually happening in our nervous system, and to come back to a state where you can think, choose, and connect. That's it. That's all it is. It's not about being calm all the time. It's not about never getting angry or upset or overwhelmed. It's about being able to notice when you're left in that, when you've left your steady state, and then how to find your way back. Okay? So this is a really important thing for us to think about. And the more we focus on, the more it becomes familiar to us. So why is it important for you as educational leaders? I think apart from all the things I've mentioned in terms of your health and well-being and how you communicate, your nervous system, generally, it's contagious. So how you're feeling is people within 10 feet of you are feeling your energy, okay? And you're feeling other people's energy. So if you're in a nice, calm state, and I know you all know this, if you're in a nice, calm state, you've had a great evening, you come into work, you're feeling amazing, you're in a nice, regulated state, and somebody walks towards you, say a parent walks towards you who's really angry and annoyed, you not only can see that in their face, but you're actually feeling that energy coming towards you. And your body's built, your brain's built to go, am I safe now? Am I not? Okay. And the same is for you as a leader with your team. So when we're in leadership positions, people are looking at you for a sense of safety. And if you're very dysregulated and you're very stressed all the time, not because we know we're in and out of that, then their brain's saying, am I safe with that person? Okay. So you all know this as teachers in your profession. You know, if you walk into a classroom, your impact, creates the dynamics that happen in the classroom with the children. The same thing happens with adults too. So the research is really clear. Co-regulation isn't just something we offer children. It's happening all the time between adults in every room, in every service. The emotional climate of a service flows from the top down. And when you walk into a room, you're regulated, you create safety. And when you walk into a room dysregulated, even when you don't mean to, you're creating a disconnect for people because they're moving into a sense of, I'm not sure how safe I feel with you. And in a sector that is asking more of you than it's ever done, in a world that's just pretty crazy at the moment, this matters more than ever because your team is reading you, your educators are reading you, the children are reading you. So what we do with our own nervous systems isn't just personal wellness, it's actually a leadership issue. So that's why I titled the webinar that I did, because you're taking back the room when you're aware of the energy that you're walking in with. So I want to talk a little bit about this, and I apologize if it's really teachy tiny, so I can see you moving into the screen. Is that a little bit better? I've enlarged it a bit more. Don't worry too much about the detail. I can send you the slide. That's not a problem. The main bit I really want you to have a look at in terms of the window of tolerance, we have like the dysregulated and the hyperarousal states outside here, which are in the green, blue, orange, and red. But then what I want you to look at here is this little river with the blow up inflatable, can't think of the word of what it's called. Anyway, it's not a horse, it's a something or another. So just bear with me. So when we're stressed and when we're in a dysregulated space, our window of tolerance shrinks. And what this does is it impacts the way you communicate with yourself and with other people, because there are things that are happening in your brain, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, that actually make it impossible for you to access different parts of your brain. But what I want you to do when you look at this slide is I want you just to take on board this model, the window of tolerance, has come from Daniel Siegel's work, who I'm sure many of you might have heard of, and if you haven't, please do check him out. He's amazing. Where he talks about the zone where you think, feel, and lead at the same time is in that window of tolerance. So as leaders, what we're trying to do is we're trying to think about what's happening in our window of tolerance at any given time. And that fluctuates. And you all know this. So if Belinda was saying, like, and correct me, Belinda, if I'm misrepresenting what you're saying, but how I heard you is that this morning she's come into work, she's got 1,000,001 things to do. And I mean, there's probably things that have happened before she came to work, with 1,000,001 things, being a busy woman before she came to work, that are impacting her already before she started work. And then the 1,000,001 things to do. And until she sorts out that list of things that she's got to do and grounds herself, her window of tolerance is probably shrunk a little bit. Yeah. And then what we're doing is we're thinking, okay, so how can we expand that window of tolerance so that we can become in a more regulated space? Because the more narrow it is, the more dysregulated it is, the more we're moving to hyperarousal, which we don't have time to go into great detail, but it's, I'm sure many of you know this from children's perspective. It's along similar principles, except obviously the adult brain is operating in a different way to a child's brain. So what I'd love you to take away from this slide, not necessarily all the detail, but the key information is when you're stressed, when your window of tolerance is shrunk or shrinking, it impacts the way you think, you feel, and you lead. And you all know that. I know you do. But I'm trying to put the science behind this for you. And if you know the science, I'm just reminding you of the science. So I have very much more elaborate pictures of the brain, but this is a really good one in terms of just simplifying what's happening. The Truan brain, which is slightly outdated model, but it's one that many of you may be familiar with. And I'm just trying to think of the name of the person who brought this to everybody's attention, has done a lot of work around self-regulation. He talks about, and I'm just going to use my words around this, and you've got the visual to have a look at it, that when we're stressed, when we're hyper stressed, like when we're very stressed, a little bit of stress is not a bad thing for us to have. I really need to state that because sometimes we think of stress as the enemy. Stress is not the enemy, okay? It's what we do with stress that is the enemy at the end of the day. And if we have too much of it, its impact. So up in the prefrontal cortex and the neocortex is where our thinking brain is. This is where the relational thinking happens, where we do our planning, problem solving, empathy, conscious choice. And this is the part of the brain that knows what's generative. It can draw on past experiences. It's where our curious response comes from. And this is what we want leaders to be able to access at all times. I think you'd all agree. Like we need these parts of our brain because they're very, very helpful. And then we've got our limbic system, which is the emotional brain, which is in the middle. And this holds your emotions, your memories, your alarm system, the amygdala. And the amygdala is constantly scanning for threat, not just physical threat, social threat, professional threat, and the email from the regulator threat. Like it's constantly scanning all of the time. Is anything happening? Oh, there's that angry parent walking towards me who had a go at me last week. And you're literally, or that member of staff is late again and I've got to have a word with them. Like that's where all of those feelings are actually coming from, that part of your brain. And then at the bottom of the brain, right at the bottom at the back, is the brain stem, the survival brain. And at the base, that's where our reptilian brain can be accessed. And this is where fight, flight, and freeze. This is where our heart rate suddenly may increase. It creates the heart rate increase, the breath instinct. And it basically, it's been keeping humans alive for millions of years. And bless that brain system, stem, it still thinks bears are coming out of the cupboards and lions are running towards us. Like it's very, it operates from a survival perspective. And I really want to highlight that because it does a great job at keeping us safe, but it can be very, very overreactive. So what happens when we become stressed? So a great way of just thinking about this at real surface level. So we're not going into great detail about the brain science, but if something happens where you're really stressed, your prefrontal cortex and your neocortex literally go offline. You start to have difficulty accessing them. So if you think about this like an electrical current, it's like it's sending through bits of information, but it's not very coherent. And then the limbic system and the reptilian brain literally take over the show. They're the things, it's like a super highway of emotions and feelings and, feelings of what's happening in our body, what's happening in our head. We make up stories. We're like constantly feeling under threat. So you can see when you're in a dysregulated space as a leader, it's not the best state to be in. Again, I'm telling you, you already know this, but I'm telling you why. Okay? Because it's like if you're just about to have a really difficult conversation with a staff member and you are only accessing your limbic and your reptilian brain, how do you think that conversation's going to go? Put it in the chat box. How do you think that conversation's going to go? Good, bad, terribly? Not well. Absolutely, Jackie. Not effective, not like you would want it to. Absolutely. You know, those times where you go after a difficult conversation with somebody, um, you go, why did I say that? Like, why did those words come out of my mouth? Or I should have said this, I should have said this, I should have said that. But none of those words were actually accessible at the in those moments. And the reason is because you're not accessing your prefrontal and neocortex parts of your brain. And this is where I want to just pause for a moment. So I just want to read some of what you've shared. Not effective, not like you'd want it to be, heightened, would go south real quick, and unproductive. Absolutely. The piece that I want to just pause with here is this is where self-compassion really needs to come in. This is not another stick to beat ourselves with. We're all working in extremely busy environments with a lot of stress around us. You know, if we talk about emotional contagion, you've got teams who are feeling stressed as well as yourself. So I want to put this in the real world context. So this is about building awareness. And sometimes we do better than we do at other times, okay? We're all human. But the name of the game here is increasing our awareness, becoming more conscious about how we're leading in the moment. So let's just, I think you've answered this really earlier. What does hyperarousal look like? But let's just get you to drop in the chat box again. When you're thinking about when you're in your most hyper aroused state, what does that look like? If somebody was looking at you, what would they be seeing in you in those moments or feeling? Unproductive, busy, lack focus, stress, quick to judge, beautiful. Keep popping them in, both withdrawn but also running around like a headless chicken. Absolutely. Stuck. Great. So sorry, we're going to have to leave. No worries. Frantic or withdrawn, not feeling safe. Okay. So I also touched on this earlier. You can look, you can smile, like I can be very hyper aroused and have very high energy and be smiling and showing the world externally that I'm okay, but they're not feeling it. So there's an incongruence between what we're looking like and what we're feeling. And that's very, I was going to say dangerous. That's a too dramatic word. That's not good for our teams because what that does is it creates incongruence. That what they're doing is they're seeing something and they're feeling something different. Okay, so they're like, you're smiling, but I'm feeling not everything's okay. And this was a really important learning for me because I, in my younger years of leadership, grew up with you know, you have to conceal what you're really feeling and you have to be professional and you have to just, you know, keep marching on and working through it and just showing up as, you know, I'm obviously English, so I've got the, you know, the work ethic strongly in there. Even at 62, it's still in there. But the world has changed, thank goodness, with the likes of Brené Brown, and people are actually saying, you know, we can be vulnerable in the workplace. We can actually share. We're not in our best place to have conversations with people at particular times. We can share, you know what? I've got a lot going on in my personal life right now. You don't have to share what's going on, but you can say, I'm not at my best right now. And then circumnavigate and come back and go, I'm back online now. Like do you know what I mean? Because we're all human. And at the end of the day, we still got a job to do, but we can pretend we're doing the job at 100%, or we can actually say, I'm not fully present at the moment, but I'm okay. And I'll come back to you when I need, when I've got a better response. All good? Okay. So let's do a very, very quick self-regulation practice because we are running out of time. I love that you're all positioning yourself ready. That's good. So all I'm going to get you to do is put your feet firmly on the ground. Make sure your legs are not crossed. And put your shoulders back so your airways are nice and open. You haven't got your pen in your hand or your hands on the keyboard. And I just invite you can keep your eyes open. You don't have to close them, but if you want to close them, close them. And I invite you just to take 5 deep breaths in and out. And if you can, extend your breath out longer than your inhale. And do whatever feels right as the rhythm for you. And then when you're ready, just type Y in the chat box so I can see who's back. Got lots of things happening in there, Belinda. Did you manage to do that? You're getting tested this morning. It's called reality learning. It's good. Great. Okay. Beautiful. So that's it. That's it. That's just pausing and slowing down can move you towards being more self-regulated. Does it move you to being totally self-regulated? I want you to think of a continuum with self-regulation. Like you're not going to have that feeling like you're lying on a beach now because you're at work, but we can impact, and within 60 seconds, we can impact our self-regulation like really fast. And often all it is just bringing conscious awareness to the moment and pressing pause and just being really conscious and taking some breaths. And I think all of you, and I'd love it if no one didn't, is you can feel quite a significant shift happen quite quickly, can't you, in your state, just by just pausing. Did anyone struggle with that? No? All good? So if there was anyone in the room who's going, that was really hard, my head was just racing and it wouldn't stop, like, that's okay. Like, that is okay. Just bring awareness to it. That's one step towards more regulation than it happening without you being aware of it. Okay. So we're all in different journeys. We're all in different spaces. What you feel today may be different to what you feel this afternoon. What you feel this afternoon may be different to what you feel in 2 days' time. If you're at work, you'll feel different to when you're at home. If you've got things going on at home, you might feel more dysregulated at home than you do at work. Like, I don't want you to think of this as a fixed state or that there's a right or wrong way. You have to find your own way that works for you. And there's so many resources out there to support you with this. And if you go into my website, there's loads of resources. There's downloadable resources in terms of meditations and processes, but find what works for you at the end of the day. So this is what I should have showed you before we did it, but this is about when we start to self-regulate. If your mind's going here, then there and everywhere, and it doesn't want to focus just on the breath, is actually just to really connect with what's going on in your breath. Just sometimes I just notice, I take a few deep breaths and then I just notice my shoulders and they're up here. And then I'm like, oh, just that makes you do that. Everybody do that now. Just lift your shoulders up and then take a breath out and go. That's just a release, isn't it? You could walk into a busy classroom and do that. Like that's doable, isn't it, in your busy schedules? And then just notice what's going on in your mind. Just be curious. That's all we need to do. And it's once you start noticing without judgment, you're opening a doorway into a more regulated space. So I'm going to very quickly take you through the STOP model because this is a model that is a tool you can take away. And where I've shared it, people have had lots of success with this model. And obviously, in the time that we've got, we can't spend very long on it. But I want to give you something just in terms of something that's really practical that your intellectual brain can play with. Because often when we're at work, we've got things happening. And when we've got something that we can go, oh, if I do this and do this, then I can create a structure moving forward. And our brains like certainty, they like predictability, so it gives you that. So this is a model that's come from Carol Vivian's five-step model for interrupting the stress response before it takes over. So very quickly, there are 5 steps to it. We stop, we take a breath, we observe, we pull back, and we practice what works. And I'm going to give you a little bit more detail in a minute. And if you want these slides, just email me and I can send you the slides after today's session. So what this does is it's a circuit breaker from the moment between the trigger and response. And it literally takes 30 seconds. And those 30 seconds can just change the direction of where a conversation's going or where you're going, all in one pause. So with each step, what we do is we stop. So often we're in an unconscious state where we're just operating at an unconscious level with all the filters that we have going on in our brains, which do a great job at keeping everything manageable. But what it does is it stops that automatic response and it creates a moment of mindfulness. So just sometimes stopping ourselves can be enough. Like just to stop and pause. Okay. Sounds easy, but it's not. Then the next one's take a breath. So activate the parasympathetic nervous system. That's what it does. So we've got parasympathetic nervous system. When we take a breath, it directly correlates with that. And when we take a breath, it's like we're communicating with the body to just say, calm down. And like, obviously, we're breathing all of the time. That's a given, otherwise, we'd be dead. But when we're consciously doing a breath, you'll probably, if you're in a stressed state, your breath won't be as full as it needs to be. So when we do an actual conscious breath, you're taking some control back over your automatic nervous system that's happening, and you're driving the bus versus your nervous system driving it. You observe. So it's like, interesting. I've just gone into judgment there. Or, oh, I might be thinking, oh, that person really annoys me. Or, I can never get anything right. And we just observe it. We don't attach anything to it without without judgment, sorry. Then we pull back. Now, pulling back isn't just it's not pulling back or away from people. What it is it's actually just stepping back a little bit so we can move away from the intensity. And often when we're stressed, our perspective narrows, we get very fixed. And what this does is it broadens with the breath what we might not be seeing. It gives us a broader perspective. And then practice what works. Choose a response that aligns with your values and not your reactivity. So what I mean by this is, without exception, all the early childhood professionals I've worked with are very caring and they're very relational and they care about the people they work with and work for. But when we get stressed, sometimes we can be sharp with people, abrupt or rude or shut down or sometimes aggressive. We're not meaning to be, because we understand now that's that limbic and reptilian brain that's taken over. That's not aligned to your values generally from my experience. So what we want to do is, even if we're feeling stressed, is actually to switch into our values response, which could be something along the lines of, the work we do together really matters, and I need some time to think about how I respond to this. So you're not reacting to what's happening, you're actually stepping back and creating some space. Or even simply, do you know what? I'm really struggling at the moment. I'm actually feeling something's got triggered inside me. I don't know what, but I need just to process what's happening and then I'll come back to you. Or if you can't go back, you can't step away from the conversation, is to say, can we just slow the conversation down? Because I'm really concerned we might be missing something really, or I might be missing something really important here. And that's a value of care and connection. It's not the value of disconnection, which is often what happens when we're in a space of stress. Is that helpful? Any questions? Anyone got any questions? So Debbie said in the chat box, we're currently without children. How can we do this practically when children are fighting, staff are getting frustrated, we are feeling overwhelmed? Then what? Don't always have a moment to stop and breathe. Often it takes action fast and then can find your center to self-regulate. There's a lot in there, Debbie. Debbie, can your camera go on, or did you tell me your camera's not working?
It's working.
Hi, Debbie. That's better. Because it's a great question. So I'm going to be a bit controversial here, and you can all say that's not true, Sarah, but I think you're breathing anyway. Whatever's happening, you're breathing anyway. So when you
It's
say
that
you
conscious
can't,
deep breath that we don't always get that opportunity to take.
well, that's the word option, isn't it? It's a choice point. So what I would say is, if you're saying, and there's no judgment with what I'm saying, by the way, please don't feel that I'm judging you, because I'm not. There's getting caught up in the emotion, and the limbic system and the reptilian brain have taken over. If you're in that place where you're like, I can't take a breath, then those parts of your brain have actually taken over in the moment. Yeah? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yeah. When it just feels overwhelming, everyone's looking at you for help. They don't know what to do. You're the one. You're the where the buck stops. So everyone's waiting for you to take action, and it's like, now what?
Okay.
So it's almost like you don't have that opportunity to slow the breath but you're saying that it's a choice.
It is a choice, and it's a choice. Sorry, your automatic nervous system is making that not a choice, if that makes sense, because you're like on autopilot. Your body is just doing what it's doing to keep you safe, to survive it. So it's in that survival mode. So what we're talking about is overriding that automatic response, which it's not necessarily easy. I'm not suggesting this is necessarily easy. And if you did it a lot, it would definitely get a lot harder. So the first point of this is awareness that you're in that place. So it's like, I'm just being dramatic for the sake of just demonstration here, but you've got loads going on and your head's going, and you're like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Like, you're in that moment of complete overwhelm. It's in that moment, then you've got to find a way of actually just bringing awareness to the fact you're actually in that space. That's the first thing. And the fastest way of doing that is the breath. Because if you take a deep breath, you slow everything down. You don't look convinced.
It's easier said than done.
It isn't. This is what I'm saying. It's an easy thing to do. We look at this but it's actually quite complex. So what I would suggest is you don't wait until you get to that point to start practicing this. You start practicing this in quieter moments where you are a little bit stressed, but you're not totally overwhelmed. It's like riding a bike. If you can't ride a two-wheeler bike and I just put you one on it, you're going to fall off, aren't you? But if I give you stabilizers, you're gonna build up confidence. You're going to start getting the balance right. You're going to start building the awareness, and you'll start, and then eventually you'll go, okay, you can take them off. That's what I would say. So start with, if you're in that place, start in a really realistic place that feels comfortable for you. Keep practicing it and keep practicing it. And it's like what you focus on is what you get, okay? So if you're focusing on, and I'm not suggesting you could, but if you, sorry, what was I going to say? I've just watched Angie's message and I've lost my train of thought. So what I was going to say was, if you can find moments in your day where you just say, I'm just going to practice the breath. That's all I'm going to do. I haven't got anything going on. I'm just going to practice my breath and see what that feels like. That's a starting point. If you do that in a classroom, Debbie, that's, you know, a normal classroom where things are not crazy, okay, that will create an impact in itself because of the emotional contagion thing that we've talked about. So start at a really realistic level. If you share this with your team and they're all doing it at the same time, then you're increasing that emotional contagion impact, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But ultimately, and this is sort of the reality, if you're a leader, you have to lead the energy. You're leading, that's your job to do it. So this is where I'm saying this isn't a choice point in some ways, because it's our responsibility to be professional. And part of being professional is, if everything's happening, we have to be the grounded person in what's happening. That's what we're getting paid to do as leaders. So is it easy? Not necessarily. And everybody, as I've said earlier, is in different spots. We're dealing with different things at different times in different ways.
I find I might be speaking just from myself, but there are a few others who've signed up, so they must also feel the same way, that at some point we just go into action. You just take action, and then you explain to the teachers after, okay, so, you know, in this situation, maybe we can try this or whatever, once we have grounded ourselves. Because at that point, everything is happening, and you just need to calm the children, and then the staff can find their own self-regulation.
Well, I think you've just answered your own question there.
No, but at that point, we're not self-regulated yet.
No, and what I would add with that is, obviously, if children are in a situation where they're unsafe, you just have to take action. You have to do what you have to do. That's a given. Do you know what I mean? And I think sometimes we think of self-regulation as, you know, we need to sit down with our legs crossed in a corner and meditate. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm actually trying to share, this is where we actually start to think about how we can regulate in moving moments, if that makes sense, in our practice. And I wouldn't suggest you try and learn something at its most extreme. I'd suggest you learn when it's at its most easiest, and then the skill gets better. As I said, it's like the bicep. You're building that muscle up more and more until you start to do it, you know, not all the time necessarily, but you're doing it more on automatic. Angie, I don't know if you want to add anything, because you've done this work for a long time. And I also want to just set up that no one gets this. Like, it's not like we're all walking around in a regulated state all of the time. And I really don't want you walking. I wish we could, but I don't think that's a reality. Sorry, Angie, I'm just going to let you jump in.
I agree. And I think this message is, it happens, and it happens a lot. And I think it's a really good example. The breathing, we've trialed where that with the children and with the team, that we call it like a pause break. So everyone knows it becomes a ritual or a routine in the day when everyone's feeling heightened, and we all we all just stop together. So we physically actually having a pause. So everyone has the opportunity to have, even when the children are fighting, you might have I don't know, we haven't done it for a long time because it's sort of become part of what the children know, but a little tiny bell that might ring and everyone has to stop and they literally have to just pause, which is then focusing on the breath. And it's something that Sarah has taught us, and we've just created it in all the training that we've done, and it is very effective because the children will go back to another state of play then. Like you might move them on to maybe packing away because they're hungry, or you're checking in on why is this happening now. But I really feel that just stopping and breathing yourself is not going to help. But I think if everyone does it together and everyone's aware of it in your team, then that may help. I don't know whether I'm on the right track or not, Sarah, but
I think it's a great share. I think, and that's that changing state. Everybody is just you're basically making everybody pause
yes.
and then reset. And I love the idea of the bell because then that becomes an anchor for your classroom, that it gets anchored in. So the more you use it, the more you don't have to explain what you're doing. It becomes an automatic, we've heard the bell. Okay, we now need to take some deep breaths.
And the children know in an evacuation and a lockdown that there's a different bell. Like, I mean, you could have just a chime going or something. So make sure you use the different acknowledgement to what the children have got to be doing, just so that they don't get more heightened.
That's a great question, Debbie. Thank you, Angie, for sharing.
Yeah, pleasure.
And I just want to finish off, Debbie, with that is and Debbie's shared that she thinks this is a great idea. That's good. I'd definitely try that. So thanks for sharing that, Angie. And just what you're describing, it sounds like everybody's in that dysregulated space. Like it's not just the leaders, it's like everybody is. So that sounds like a really good way. I call it breaking state, like because everybody's in that sort of going down, it's getting more and more and more heightened. And your question is, so how do you stop that in the moment? And so I think Angie's provided a great example of that. So thanks for the question. Okay, we are now over time, so I'm just going to quickly wrap up. I'm not going to go through those. I just want to quickly share if any of this content has landed with you and you're interested in doing some more work around this. We have a project called the Dandelion Project, where you can join us for 6 months, or if you have a leader who is somebody that you feel would really benefit from this kind of training. We've got like a 6-month immersive opportunity where you get to spend, as I say, 6 months with us. The program starts in July. We meet in Sydney for 2 days and do 2 days of full intensive immersion training, which again is very much focused on you and giving you the practical skills of how to do some of the things that we've talked about today and loads more. You get to work with a group of very experienced mentors who've been doing this work for a long time. And then we work together for 5 months. We meet once a month online, where you get given specific communication tools that are all around mentoring, building relational strength in your communication and trust within your teams. So this is a great opportunity. We ran the program for 10 months. We've revised it with the feedback that's come back, and the outcomes of this program have been phenomenal. So even if as a leader you're like, I don't have time for this, we're very aware that a lot of the responsibilities for having difficult conversations or mentoring conversations land with sort of senior leaders in your service, and that gives you an opportunity to start building the capacity within your service to sort of strengthen the communication, and everything starts with self-regulation. So please feel free, you'll hear more about that moving forward via different emails. It's a little bit more detail on the project there. Any questions? Do you have any questions before we wrap up? I know you're all going to be wanting to wrap up. So Rachel, can I get you to email me? I'm just in the process of moving house and I won't necessarily get to do that today. So if you can just email me, then I'll put my email address in the chat box. So just email me with what you want. And if you've got any questions that you don't feel you got answered during the session, I'm happy to follow up with you. And I wish you a regulated day. You take care, everybody. Speak soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. Bye.